Welcome to Bluegrass Brooklyn, our podcast all about the music we love, coming to you straight from the Bluegrass borough of Brooklyn, New York. So, episode 10, what a milestone. We've reached the end of season 1 of Bluegrass Brooklyn. Very exciting, and it's been a great time. We've talked to a bunch of fantastic guests and visited venues and cities, and it's been amazing. And probably the most amazing thing that happened was Liz decided to join us somewhere on episode 3. So Liz, you still happy with that decision?
I certainly am. I'm having a blast. And I hope everybody listening is also having a blast because this is a lot of fun, talking to some great people and learning some cool stuff.
Yep, it really is. Speaking of learning some cool stuff, tell us a little bit about your interview with Nate. How did that go for you?
I love that Nate showed up with a mandolin in his hand. Of all the musicians, like everybody's just talking, but he showed up, he had a mandolin in his hand, and he was ready to really share his incredible wisdom. He's been teaching since he was 16.
Yeah.
And he had some great stuff to say about practicing that is applicable to anyone, not just mandolin players.
Yep. Looking forward to that interview, Liz. And also, we wrapped up Jam Jersey, which was a great time. And we're going to do a whole episode on that in season 2, early in season 2. So just want to remind folks, this is the last episode of season 1. We'll start season 2 on May 1st. And that episode, we're going to get a chance to talk to Theo Boguszewski, one of our local bluegrass celebrities and mastermind behind the epic Porch Stomp event, which is coming up on June 21st, 2025. And please remember to follow us on Instagram at Bluegrass Brooklyn, spelled BKLYN. There's also a Facebook group, Bluegrass Brooklyn. And Liz, what if we want to find out about jams and events that you're hosting or promoting?
BluegrassJamsNearMe.com.
Absolutely. Okay, so Liz, what do you say we get started?
Let's do it.
All right, let's roll.
Hi, and welcome everybody. Today we have Nate Lee as our guest, the mandolin player who has played with the likes of Becky Bueller, Jim Hurst, and he's even got a few IBMA awards, or at least 2, I should say, in his back pocket. And we're very excited to have him on today. Nate, tell us your story.
Hey Liz, thanks for having me. And those awards in my back pocket are very heavy, so I'll have to deposit those soon. So for those of you out there that don't know me, I've been a professional musician for most of my life. I started playing as a kid. It's always been a passion. And I've been a teacher for over 20 years, and I really enjoy teaching just because it's something you can do, but it's a passion for me. Anybody who wants to check out what I do, you can find me at playnately.com. That's PLAYNATELY.com, and you can find all my teaching stuff. And if you want to chat, you can even book a free 15-minute meet and greet on there. I love to teach, love to chat, and my specialty is I turn beginners into jammers and jammers into professionals.
And that is where I am. I'm in the jammer to professional mode. And one thing, just to let our listeners know right up front, the reason I got connected with Nate is because we're doing a mandolin masterclass. So we'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. But that's why I wanted to get together and hear a little bit more about Nate and what he's up to in his musical world. So yeah, give us a little bit more of your backstory, Nate.
Yeah, sure. The boring part here is that I've played my whole life, and that's what pretty much everybody like me has done. But I had a fun introduction to it, which is that I started with Suzuki violin, and I had never heard of fiddle music, mandolins, anything. So when I was about 10, I think it was, we went to Six Flags Over Texas for their Heritage Festival they would do every year. So we got there, and there's this band there, and it was a string band, hammered dulcimers and whatnot, and there's this guy playing this little almond-shaped thing, and I'm like, what is that? I want that. So I told my parents, and they bought one for my sister. So that's a great way to get started. I wanted it so bad, and she didn't want to play it at all. So she started just passing it off to me. She wanted to play piano. Finally, we got what we wanted. I came up through the camp scene, so very similar to what your clients and your students are doing. I got some really great teachers there, learned a lot, and I actually, at the camp I came up through, I've been teaching there every year for many years. I'm 37. I've missed it twice since I was 10. So really lucky to get started that way. Went to college at the same place, South Plains College, got 2 certificates and a degree in bluegrass, and then went on and played in bands and all that. I was right place, right time, was in Alan Mundy's band during college and gotten to play with a bunch of fun people since then. And at that college, I studied with Joe Carr, one of the best teachers I've ever seen. And his stuff is the foundation of how I teach other people to play.
Well, you mentioned your sister getting the mandolin. I always wanted to learn how to play the guitar when I was a kid, and I never thought that I could or something. As an adult, I've reflected on quite a bit. But my sister Ruth Ann got the guitar. There was this thing called the Maritzens. Ugh, I think I'm saying it wrong. She's probably laughing as she's listening. And it was a sort of an Eastern European dance and music group. And my sister used to get sent to it for these lessons. And I was like, but wait, I want to learn how to play the guitar. I didn't do until I was an adult. So anyone listening, do it anyway. So sounds like you had a musical family.
Absolutely. My dad played some and my mom was into music, and it wasn't a big area of study or hobby for them other than they like to play some music, and that is a massive advantage growing up with parents who listen to music. It was always on. Makes it a lot easier when you actually get into playing.
And you also mentioned that you had a focus in bluegrass in college.
Yeah, so I went to South Plains College, which is in Levelland, Texas. It's hot. It's very flat. You can stand on a tuna can and see what they're doing in the next county. And there's not a lot going on, but it also has a beauty to it. It's a desert. And there in the middle of that desert is one of the first commercial music college programs. So it's the commercial music department at South Plains College, and it was created by John Harton, who's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So Alan Mundy taught there, Joe Carr taught there, a couple other cool players. There's been some cool players that came out of there. Ron Block went there, Stuart Duncan went for a little while, Natalie Maines came out of there. And I learned so much there. It's something that now there's more places you can go. The flagship is ETSU. But without South Plains College, giving the template, a lot of these other places wouldn't have become what they did. So it's a really cool progression to watch. There's not much bluegrass happening there anymore, but I was lucky enough to be there when it was happening.
Interesting, because bluegrass has seemingly been expanding and expanding into so many other places. And from what I hear at Berkeley College, they have a bluegrass focus as well, and different places that you can go to learn more about bluegrass. In fact, a little known fact about me, I'm getting my bachelor's of music right now at City College, one class at a time. It's a popular music program, and next semester I'm doing a popular music ensemble, and I'm already talking with the instructor to say, could we do some bluegrass? Because it would be so much fun to bring that in there, because you can't imagine how much heavy metal is part of the theory. I've not listened to that much heavy metal since I was in 9th grade. So I'm hoping to bring some bluegrass into City College popular music program.
Well, that sounds fantastic. The first music school I went to, Cedar Valley College in the Dallas, Texas area, and they only did classical there. And I think I was the only one ever to bring in a mandolin, and they were actually receptive to it. It was really cool, because often we think of music colleges especially as that they might be snooty and only like what they do, but so often it's not the case, and they'll let us bring some bluegrass in.
Let me ask you about turning beginners into jammers and jammers into professionals. So tell us about your process.
It was all born out of a lot of my own frustration. So I started out as a kid, and when you're getting better as a kid rapidly, which most kids do, you kind of get this idea of that you're always supposed to improve at that pace. And I was a big fish in a non-existent pond in the Dallas area as a kid. So I didn't have a lot of people to play with. There were some really great people I got to play with, but I didn't have a lot of the chances to grow based on what was available around me. So at some point that hit a limit where I wasn't getting better. And this was even after I'd gone to college. I got a lot better there, but I wasn't steadily getting better. And I was very hung up in the idea of talent. Either you're born to play soccer, or you're born to play mandolin, or to do math, whatever it is. So I felt like you get what you get, and this is what I got. The problem was I wanted a career and it wasn't working. So I had to figure out, what is stopping me? Can this be changed? And that was the beginning of all of it. I started figuring out, what do you actually have to do to get better? And I was doing most of it wrong. I was practicing wrong, practicing my mistakes like crazy. and not looking for ways around it. So I started fixing my own problems, some of which was a major speed roadblock that I hit. This is the thing that's got mandolin players just banging their heads against a tree, and had to find my way around those things. And I'd already been teaching for a while, but then I suddenly had the skills to help the students get better, and then gradually had the skills to help really good players get better and better. So the pivotal moment was a student brought me this book by Jonathan Harnum. It's called The Practice of Practice. And everybody listening, go buy two, one's for you and one's for your friend. And it breaks down step by step exactly what you're supposed to do. It explains how it works, gets into some light neuroscience. And that was the beginning of what I do now, where I realized everything is skills and sub-skills. And if something's going wrong, as a great educator named Aidan Rayner always says, if you're not making leaps and bounds in your learning, the problem is not with you, it's in your learning methods. So what I do is I find out, what is the problem? The problem is never the student. Someone who can't play fast or doesn't understand B, it's not their problem. It is my problem to come up with what we need to do, even if we try 10 things to figure out what's in the way. And that's how you go from a beginner to a successful jammer. What I do and what you do work together perfectly, because I can't give people that group class sort of situation, but I can give them what they need to go and be able to do the things that you ask them to do. And then for the people graduating from guided jam level, I can give them the things they need to move on to even a pro level. It all is based on the same thing though. It's what is the skill? What are the sub skills? And when something's not working, there's always an answer. So then I have to figure out what it is. And I enjoy doing that.
I'm loving it. Well, everybody write that down, the practice of practice. We'll put that in the show notes, I'm sure. And can you give us an example of a practice methodology or something that you think would help a mandolinist to be a better jammer or player?
Yeah, my all-time favorite, and I picked this up from that book, The Practice of Practice, called the chaining method. And the way it works is you take a musical phrase. So if I had like just this lick, most people will learn that or even a whole song just by reading a page, or they learn by ear, and then they just try to play the whole thing. And you can tell where they've put together the licks. So you can hear a particular lick, it goes fine, then there's this gap. I call them moments, where the student's like, what's next? And then they play the next thing. You can fix memorization issues and take something that sounds rough and make it better by using the chaining method. So the way it works is using this short example. You learn one note and you just do that. This takes self-control that most people don't have, so you've got to build it. Then you play 2 notes. And you literally keep it to 2 notes, which is harder to do than you would think. Then you do 3. Then 4. I'll move quicker here. Then 5. Then you do it on your next lick, whatever it is you're going to do. And then you go back and you chain those licks together by practicing 1 or 2 notes where the licks come together. Then you expand it. What if I play 3 or I play 4? So now you're snaking your way back and forth. I like to think of it if you had a page of notation in front of you and you just took a piece of paper with a rectangle cut in it and just make a window over one section. Well, you could move that window back and forth. So maybe you're starting on beat 2 of measure 5 and making your way through the next measure halfway through. Well, you could scoot that over. What if you start on beat 3, but you still go the same amount of beats? When you use this method, it smooths everything out. It helps you memorize things much more quickly, but it also takes away those very obvious tells where you've practiced individual licks, because people will get individual licks down great, but then it sounds like it's halted 10 times in a single A part of St. Anne's Reel.
I love it. So this method applies not only to mandolinists, also to guitar or fiddle.
Every instrument, not just melody. This is how I teach people to practice chords, chaining your chords. You can practice all kinds of things with this. When I was trying to survive college and the musicians had to take a live sound class and an audio engineering class, the only way I managed to set up a stereo biamp was chaining. This was years before I discovered chaining. I didn't realize I could use this in music, but it applies to so many different things. Lyrics, same thing. People start from the beginning of their lyrics and they try to get through it. Well, if lines 1 and 2 are great, they need to stop starting there. Start on maybe line 2 toward the end and work your way into line 3. It's extremely versatile. It's an amazing technique.
It's interesting because one of the classes I'm taking this semester is ear training. And basically what I do is I lay it out and then I listen to it repeatedly. When I say I lay it out, I copy it into note flight. And so I could see how when I get stuck, instead of going back to the beginning, I go, okay, well, it's just happening the measure before that and go into that and do that a few times. Love it. Okay. And then what about jammer to professional? What is happening there? Is it the same? Are you doing other things?
A lot of it is surprisingly the same. So I can get somebody who's semi-pro and somebody who's breaking into intermediate, and they may have the same problems at a different level. So things like changing chords smoothly. Even players who are out getting paid for gigs often don't change chords very smoothly. So it's a lot of little things like that. People tend to think of, what do you have to be able to do to be a professional? And they imagine all these fancy hot licks and things like that. Number one is, for mandolin players, what you really need is chop in time and be somebody they can ride in a van with for 8 hours. Like if you can do those two things, you're in great shape. You can sing a baritone part to go with that. Like you're in the money. Better mandolin players won't get the gig because they can't do those couple of things. Often with the people getting into sort of a semi-pro level, and this is not necessarily, does not have to be somebody who is on a career track. So people who go and they play at the local community center and made $40, this is the same category. Hobbyist bands are also semi-pro bands. So what I see that these people are missing are a lot of small things related to connections is one of them. Transitions from, say, their kickoff to playing chords smoothly. They have hitches there. You fix that, now your kickoff and your chords sound smooth. And then being able to handle something like playing and singing without messing up. It's a lot of little things. What I call like B-level bluegrass bands, which for me, that is very, very high praise. B-level is very good. A-level, we're talking Sam Bush, those types of people. Yeah. So if you analyze the B-level players, what they're really doing that is so good is they're not messing up on basic things. It's not that they're doing so many fancy things. They're not screwing up basic things. They may not have an iconic style like Sam Bush, but the reason we love to hear it is even if their kickoff is very simple, they don't miss any notes. They don't hit strings they didn't mean to. And most importantly, they play in good time with good tone.
So these are some of the things that we'll be going over when we do the mandolin masterclass on May 3rd. Is that accurate to say?
Yes, we'll actually be going over these same things because I teach a lot of the same things at every level. So some of the things, pick angle, for instance, that we're going to go over is just as relevant at a beginner level as it is at not even just a semi-pro level. I once had a pro come to me for some lessons. Big time band, I won't mention who it is. They needed very little, but one of the things that person needed was a tweak in the pick angle that I teach at every level. Of course, the difference is a beginner's going to need more time. With that pro, I said, put your pick here, and the rest was history. I didn't have to do much. There's like fixed. So a lot of the same things create good beginner sounds and good pro sounds. We're going to be looking at, too, the things that you actually need to sound great. So the things that most people tell you to do, 99% of it probably is a massive waste of most people's time. If you look on, go on Facebook and say, what should my mandolin practice be? You're going to get people on there like, I spend 2 hours a day on scales and modes, and then I play with my nose, like all these things. And most of the people talking about that stuff, when it's time to actually pick a tune, they can't play their way out of a paper bag because they've been playing a bunch of scales and modes. When do we actually use those? Rarely. Knowing a scale and a mode in the right place is a good thing. Like if you're going to play an F sharp major scale is a great idea. If you're never going to play an F sharp, you're wasting your time playing close position F sharp scales. So I do all the stuff you really need and I leave out the fluff. That's how you can get better in a reasonable amount of time. If you go in the route that people usually tell you to, these are often people who started as kids and had a lot of free time. If you go that route, for most adults, you're never going to get anywhere you're happy with because it's busy work and there's not enough time. Start when you're 6, sure. Start when you're 40, 50, 60. I'll have people start when they're 70. You can actually learn to play, but if you spend your time on the fluff, you will never get there. So that's the focus of all my workshops and lessons.
In your lifetime, you've played in a lot of jams. So I always like to ask all of my guests, what's your favorite jam anecdote? What's a good jam story?
Gosh, there's been so many good jams. So there's one, this is not so much of a jam anecdote, but just a highlight was the one time I was ever in a jam that Sam Bush was at. I have a picture on my fridge. It's me playing fiddle staring at him. Luckily, he wasn't looking my way. A little fun little tidbit for some of you out there, though. There's a video we did with the Becky Buller Band called What Would You Do for Your Blue Chip Pick? So it's these outrageous things. If you lost your blue chip, what would you do to get it back? Becky's is with a snorkel to dive in a porta potty. So mine was, I sword fought Sam Bush with fiddle bows for my blue chip pick and I lost. But the story, this is partially a warning. This was the first music camp I ever taught. I was 16 years old, I think. And for all of us on the faculty, this was a relatively new thing for us. And we had a really good group. We were in Texas, some little town I don't even remember. We're not teaching people who grew up in bluegrass, who come from bluegrass. They are not immersed in the slightest bit of bluegrass culture. They just bought a fiddle or a banjo and they want to know how to play it. And we're teaching them bluegrass. So we're in the jam and it's going well. I'm sitting there in the jam. My buddy, he's playing his banjo, is helping facilitate the jam. And he comes over next to one of my fiddle students and says, "Hey, would you like to take a break?" And the student looks just extremely angry, stands up and storms out of the building and had to be chased by my friend saying, no, it means, do you want to take a solo? And it really highlights how important it is to know the terminology yourself, but also to realize that new people, the ones that we have an obligation, in my opinion, an obligation to help pull along behind us, they're not going to know these things, and we've got to be really careful to make sure they do, because if my friend had not been with it and realized what happened, that person never would have come back.
Yeah, that's right.
Instead, they came back 1 minute later, took a solo, and came back to camp the next year.
That's great. I actually had the similar thing happen to me where somebody asked me that very early on. I was like, I think he had given me his 3-string dulcimer or something. And I was like, wait, I just got here. Why do you want me to take a break? I think you're right. That is a confusing phrase that you need to know what it means.
That's why I use the word solo so much, even though break in bluegrass would be considered the correct term, but we have these little tricky things. But the Wernick method fills in this huge gap that a lot of people do not have, because it's not like there's a whole bunch of glossaries on every message board with what these terms are. People usually have to hands-on teach you this stuff.
So I have a little ulterior motive in asking you this next question because I have an opinion about it. But you're a mandolinist. Do you also consider yourself a singer?
I am a singer in sort of a utilitarian way. So something for up-and-comer, wannabe pro sort of people. If you don't sing, it's harder to get gigs. If you do sing, then it's easier. So you could be an okay mandolin player. Maybe your chop is great. Your solos are fine-ish, but you can cut a good tenor part. Not even an amazing one, but a good one. You get the gig over the hotshot who won the national contest last year, who can't cut a harmony part. I was kind of thrown into it through a series of bands where people quit. And then it was like, well, somebody's got to do it. How about you? So I joined the Becky Buller Band, did just a little bit of harmony, and then the bass player quit. And he was the baritone, which baritone to Becky is like singing baritone to a dog whistle. Like, it's up there. I don't think she intended for it to go this way, but I found out that was going to be my job in the moment we found out this other guy was quitting. So I was like, oh, I'd better figure out how to do this. So I went and took a ton of lessons. Open mindset here. You can learn to do things. The fixed mindset means you'll never sing a high note, but that open mindset, the growth mindset, means you can, and you can shock yourself. So I took lessons from Stephen Mogen, who is the guitar player and one of the great singers in Sam Bush Band, and from Dee Dee Wyland, great singer herself, and learned to do the job. So it's something I do when required. If I had my druthers, there's a lot of times I don't really feel like it. It's hard with singing. If you feel froggy or something, or you got to sing at 9 a.m., that's a lot different than having to play your banjo okay at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
On my last album, I sang a lot of lead, though, because it is really hard to put together an entire album of instrumentals that stays interesting. And I wanted to do it and just kind of have it on my resume. So it did, and it came out a lot better than I thought it would. So I've continued to do it, but it really is mostly when someone asks me to do it, then I'll open my mouth and something will come out.
Well, the reason that I ask is because I spend most of my time not a pro, so I'm spending my playing time as jamming, and some of these jams get pretty big. And as mostly a singer, is the fact that I think it gets very boring after a while, where it's like I sing one verse and one chorus, and then six people later, we've listened to six potentially pretty good musicians playing mandolinist, banjo, whatever. And so I was curious to hear from you, as more of your focus being on the mandolin and the picking part and mine being more on the singing. If you're in a jam, what do you think is a good balance of instrument versus singing?
For our music, and when I say our music, I'm a big tent bluegrasser. I think even something like 50-50 can be fine, but an all-instrumental jam has a lot of potential to leave people out, because someone who doesn't know a certain cabin song but does know a different cabin song can play along. They can get through it. But when it comes to fiddle tunes, for instance, if you don't know the fiddle tune, you're out of luck. It's too hard to wing a fiddle tune. Even a lot of pro players will sit out because they're not going to actually play the tune. They sometimes feel like they're doing a disservice to the tune. I'm somewhere in the middle, because I do encourage people, if you're at a jam and you're trying to learn, take a break, even if you're going to fall on your face. But when half or more of the songs are singing songs, this gives a lot more opportunity for everyone to be involved. And for anybody out there who, whether it's instrumental or singing, feels bored when it's not their turn, they're not on, they have not tapped into the joy, the fascination of playing backup. Playing backup is an amazing thing. Pro players love to play rhythm. They love to play lead too, but that's something that, whether it's fiddle tunes or singing, that you can be really honing in on is, can I play really well in a rhythm section? And the great Wyatt Rice has said many times, if he had to pick one or the other between soloing and playing rhythm, he'd just play rhythm for the rest of his life. So it's a really great way to spend your time no matter the situation. And I do really encourage people out there, if you think you might want to sing, try it. It's not as hard as it seems like it would be. And now you can participate on those choruses, even if you're not going to sing lead.
Well, as a singer, and most of the singing that I'm doing in jams and in the Warnock classes and things is I'm really encouraging people to sing. I have a theory that most of us are actually quite adequate to even pretty good singers, and that people just don't understand. It's a little different with an instrument, because you do have to kind of know where the chord is, right? But if you are singing, you can more naturally come to be able to sing along. And so I think people are a lot better singers than they think they are. And so therefore, anybody who's listening, I'm encouraging just to sing louder, sing louder. Well, Nate, you and I have a fun thing coming up. That's going to happen May 3rd in Hamilton Heights, New York City. And is there anything else you want to share with people about that?
Well, it's going to be an emphasis on fun. We're going to have a great time. You're going to learn stuff. It's not going to be monologue. I've been to many a class as a student and been nearby for many a class as a teacher where it's nothing but lecture. That's not going to happen. You're going to play a lot. So be prepared for that. It's a no-shame zone, so you can show up not good at certain things or not having played your mandolin in 3 months, whatever. I'm going to meet you where you are. For anyone who's not sure if you're ready for the level we're going to be at, which is roughly intermediate to advanced, the way I teach, it doesn't matter so much if everyone's at the same level, because if you're more of an advanced player, I'm still going to cover the same topics, but I'm going to lean over to you and be like, hey, try this thing here. If somebody's feeling they're behind on the class, oh, this is more than I thought I was signing up for, well, I'm going to meet you where you are too, and you're going to work on the exact same things, but at your level. So for anybody out there on the fence, don't worry too much about the level. It's a no-shame zone. It's a guilt-free thing. We're going to have a really good time and cover things that you really need to know. And you will leave with actual usable things, not just some stuff that comes with the, oh man, just keep on keeping on, and it'll come together, because that is the biggest misunderstanding in all of instruction is keep on, it'll come. It doesn't. So we're going to actually make it arrive and give you things you can do right away when you get home or even that weekend at your next jam.
That sounds great. And I'm just letting anyone know who might be thinking about coming, who thinks that they might be too beginner for it, is don't worry, I'm going to take that role. I only know G, C, and D. And I only ever, if I ever get a hold of a mandolin in a jam, play one song. And it's still a lot of fun. So I'll take that lowest on the totem pole role on. So everybody there is going to be better than I am. So don't worry about that. Well, Nate, this has been a fun conversation. Lots of really good information for mandolin players, especially, and of course, anybody who's looking to get better or just have more fun, right? Let's come back to the joy of bluegrass. That's what this is all about. And so I'm very happy to have you coming to New York City and spending some time, and I guess taking your kids around a little bit too, doing some fun New York City things. And thank you very much for being on the show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's always fun to chat with you, Liz. This has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy just talking shop. And for the people coming to the workshop, we're going to do a little bit of that on the breaks. And yeah, New York City is going to be a fun little family weekend as well. And the highlight, of course, is we're going to have that nice workshop. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. And thanks again for having me on the show.
All right. And one more time, your website is?
playnately.com, playnately.com, and that's where you can sign up for private lessons, a free 15-minute meet and greet, or my pre-recorded courses. I do live ones time to time as well. You can find everything about me there, and then thenately.com, thenatlee.com is my artist website. It's very neglected, but you can find some videos and stuff there as well.
Actually, I got one more question for you. What's your favorite fiddle tune to play on the mandolin?
Chinquapin hunting.
Chinquapin hunting?
Chinquapin hunting, which is a kind of oak, I'm told. It's this one. And it goes on from there, but it is a accessible tune, so no harder to play than Whiskey Before Breakfast, but it's also different, so you're not calling Whiskey Before Breakfast for the millionth time at your jam. It's pretty cool. It's not a jam buster, but it's interesting, and I could play that one forever. I pick it up and play it all the time. It'll probably always be my favorite tune.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much again, Nate, and we'll be seeing you soon in New York City.
I can't wait.
Setting fast, and just like they say, nothing good ever lasts. We'll go on.
Well, that was such a great interview. I'm so privileged to have spoken with Nate. And I think the thing that really stands out to me is the fact that he is such a treasure, all the people that we're talking to, and they have so much really wonderful information to share and learn from.
Agree. I really got a lot out of it, and especially the part about practice, because effective practice is really like the key for us musicians. All right, so we're wrapping up season 1. Liz, it's been great so far. Yeah, woo-woo is right.
Yeah, well, I really want to thank you for inviting me to participate in this, and to all of our season 1 listeners.
Yeah.
You have been tremendously supportive of this, sharing it and putting it out and just listening. So it really means a lot to us. I want you to know.
Absolutely. In fact, please remember not just to follow us on Instagram at Bluegrass Brooklyn or on Facebook on the Bluegrass Brooklyn Facebook group, but if you have feedback, ideas, things you'd like to hear us cover, please, we're really anxious to get your feedback and mold this show to be your best and most enjoyable source of information about bluegrass music in and around the Bluegrass Borough of Brooklyn, New York. So, Liz, until May 1st, have a wonderful 2 weeks off.
You too, and enjoy where you're going. I know you're going on a big trip, so
yep.
We'll see you on the other side.
Absolutely. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody, and looking forward to seeing you around the Jam Circle.